everybody, and welcome to the Northside 9 on 4-Star Chicago Sports. The train wreck, the free fall, the nosedive. I don't know what you call it right now, but it's certainly out of control, and the Cubs have lost their way. I don't know what to say, boys and girls, but let's talk about it right after this. Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Northside 9. And oh my Lord, Kyle, we made Braxton Ashcraft yesterday look like Dwight Gooden in his rookie year. This kid comes, the Brewers just laid the wood to Pittsburgh, and it seems like they scored 5,000 runs in 3 games against him. This Braxton Ashcraft comes in yesterday, not going longer than 3 1/3 the entire season. The Pirates get 5 out of him. The Cubs get 3 hits, 1 earned. He strikes out 4. Just an embarrassment of riches. Then you're like, oh, the 5th inning, the Cubs bats will get going because what do the Pirates have? The worst bullpen in baseball. 769 during run average. And what do the Cubs do? They get runners on, and they fold with runners in scoring position. It's becoming to be a tale of a true story that this just isn't a slump. It's starting to become who the Chicago Cubs are. The Pirates' 5-game losing streak gets snapped. The Cubs' struggles continue, and I am lost. Kyle, what do you got cooking, man? Talk to me, Goose.
I mean, sure, we'll break this down individually as the show goes on, but at the end of the day, rock meet bottom. I mean, this team, stick a fork in them, man. They're done. This is officially over. 2025. It's time for the Cubs to start thinking about 2026 and beyond, because not only do I think there's a good chance they don't make the playoffs, but there's a good chance if they do, they are knocked out in the wild card without scoring a run. I mean, because that's who the Cubs are.
That could very well be true. I just, man, I am struggling to come up with reasons, excuses, or anything for this ball club. I'm trying really, really hard here. And I just wanted to say, really sorry for the late start, folks. We had a little technical difficulty at the top of the hour. But we're going to get rolling now and take you guys right into this 120 ball game between the Cubs and the Pirates. Really quick, this is our starting lineup for the day. We got Bush, Tucker, Suzuki, Pico Armstrong, Carson Kelly, Hap, Horner, Swanson, and Matt Shaw still in that 9-hole. And, of course, Shota on the bump today, this afternoon at 1:20. We're going to take you, as I said, right up to that. And this guy, Kyle, we just start off with some mind-boggling things because we're going to preview this Brewers series or whatever this Brewers-Cubs series is going to be. Could be the final nail in the Cubs' coffin. We're going to get to that in a second after we vent and rant and rave and split our heads, bang them off the desk. But you still have Matt Shaw batting in the 9-hole right now when this kid is just absolutely the only thing that's working for your ball club. He should actually, if we go back to this lineup, I mean, I guess you have Swanson batting below him, but I'm going to be honest. I think we should be moving Matt Shaw up probably right around Carson Kelly and Swanson in the 9-hole, Horner right in between Armstrong and Shaw. I mean, you have to try something different. I mean, what's the difference? What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same result. This is the same lineup that struggled. You have Michael Bush leading off. He's a 200 leadoff hitter so far this season. I know he's got a couple of dingers that made Craig Counsell look smart, but overall it's not been fantastic. You have Kyle Tucker in the 2-hole who's been struggling. And I know we want to talk about this, Kyle, because if you go back to Monday or no, it was the finale. What was it? What was the finale against Toronto? What day was that? Wednesday, right? Yeah, Wednesday. An embarrassment of riches. The Cubs get the tying runner on, no outs. You get 2, 3, 4, which is Suzuki, PCA. You're thinking, man, all we need is to move this runner around. all 3 strike out. Absolutely embarrassing in Toronto to finish off that series. And as we stated, 5-game losing streak, Pirates worst team in baseball. And I don't know, man. I just don't know anymore. I really don't.
Well, Sean, you don't know because there really is no answer. I mean, I do agree with you that, I mean, we're going to talk about everybody on the Cubs and who should be held accountable and who shouldn't. But I mean, Craig Counsell just literally has done nothing to change anything for this team in any way, shape, or form. When they're in this type of slump, you have to try to find a way to pull I mean, I'm talking about maybe putting Tucker in the 9 hole. I'm talking about maybe leading Tucker off, maybe leading PCA off. I mean, the Cubs had more success, certainly had more success when Ian Happ was the leadoff hitter at the beginning of the season. Why haven't we gone back to that? I mean, anything at all. You got to do something in some way, shape, or form to try to jumpstart this team, try to change what's happening. I mean, they are in a free fall. And it's almost like everybody refuses to catch them. Like, this is the worst run I've ever seen in the history of baseball. You said, Sean, the Brewers just scored 33 runs in 3 days off this Pirates team and off their best pitchers. And then we get a bullpen day from them, and they look like the best team in baseball against the Chicago Cubs. And we could talk about the slumps and the batting averages and with runners in scoring position, all that, all we want. But at the end of the day, Sean, I mean, this team needs somebody to pull them out of the slump. And it seems like that guy should be Craig Counsell, right? I mean, or one of your stars, but I don't see anybody doing anything. I feel like it's the same thing every single day. This the same lineup every day, same rotation. You look in the dugout. Craig Counsell looks like he's lost. He has no idea what to do. He looks depressed. He looks sad. I mean, this is
He really does.
This is 100%, Sean, a 180 from just 2 months ago. 2 months ago. 2 months ago.
And Kyle, I wonder if Craig Counsell is like, hey, man, this is what I got. These are my best players, but at the same time, the manager's role in MLB goes beyond the X's and O's. It's setting the tone, holding players accountable, keeping the clubhouse connected, making sure these guys show up ready to fight every night. And, especially when things start to go sideways like they have for the Cubs. And, if the culture isn't there and things start to unravel fast like they have for the Cubs, like we're watching right now, actually, who's the leader on this team if there's not one in that dugout outside of the manager, and the worst part about it is when the signs were starting to show and these cracks were starting to show before the trade deadline, and we're going to get into Jed here, it doesn't feel like anything was put together, the attention to detail, the early season optimism maybe masked it all to say, hey, these guys were so good for so long, they're bound to bounce out of it. But we're looking at a 50-game slump, you want to say? They were hot, I guess. They hit pretty well right before the break in New York against the Yankees. They put up, I think, 25 runs in that series. But ever since then, it's just been bottom of the barrel. And like I said, who's holding these players accountable? When you look at when we just looked at the lineup for today, it's the same damn lineup. Like, you brought up Owen Caissie, you started him one day, and now he's riding the pine every day. What is the point? This is the same thing that happened last year with David Ross, or 2 years ago with David Ross. So it starts to me to say maybe this isn't a managerial thing. Maybe this is a call from up. Hey, we're going to bring these kids up, let them get a little taste, but don't play them. I mean, is that the manager's call? I don't know what's going on. I don't understand why you have all these guys, including Ian Happ. You can throw Caissie in left and give Happ the day off and see if this kid can get a spark. I mean, we saw it against the Brewers. More baller comes in. He hits that double in the gap, sparks the 5-1 victory for the Cubs over the Brewers. It's so frustrating, dude. It is so frustrating to me right now, man. Oh my God.
Well, Sean, I like what John S. says here. He says, slump of all slumps, and Counsell just watches it happen. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not saying that there's some quick fix it here that Counsell could pull some trigger and everything's going to be better, but he hasn't done anything. I mean, you can't sit here and be like, well, Counsell's gone this route and he tried this and we tinkered with this and nothing worked. He hasn't done anything. He's just putting the same lineup out every single day, the same order, the same players. He's like you said, Sean, he's not giving guys days off. Like Ian Happ needs a day off. He needs a day off. I mean, first of all, is it just me or is Ian Happ thrown out on the bases more than anybody in the history of baseball? I feel like anytime Ian Happ tries to steal a base or go home, he's thrown out. I mean, maybe we should stop doing this. Maybe Ian Happ shouldn't be stealing bases. And you know what's really concerning for me, Sean? Just the worst part about this entire slump. It's not necessarily the slow bats or the slump. It's the fact that these guys are making mental mistakes now. They're making childish mistakes. I mean, you saw PCA slide past second base yesterday. This is stuff. When you talk about leader of men, I question sincerely whether or not Craig Counsell's leader of men. I mean, are these guys being held accountable? Like, PCA has made numerous mental mistakes in the last couple of weeks. Has anybody gone up to him and been like, "Hey, this shit needs to stop. You need to stop doing this"? You know, you have a chance to you hit a single, you bring a guy home, and then you try to take second, and it's not even close. Like, why would you round that base? Why wouldn't you stay on first base and keep the line moving? Why are you trying to take second? You're being too aggressive. Like, at some point, Counsell needs to sit down and hold some of these guys accountable. Some of the mental mistakes that are happening. You're talking about baseball 101. These things these guys learn when they're in peewee leagues. I mean, when they're children, and these guys can't seem to figure this stuff out. Somebody has to talk to them. Somebody. I mean, I feel like the team, like, it doesn't matter what the first base coach says. It doesn't matter what the third base coach says. It doesn't matter what Craig Counsell says. They're just doing whatever they want out there.
Yeah,
they're trying to pull the team out of this slump as individuals, and nobody's holding them accountable. Craig Counsell's not going over there and being like, "Hey, listen, I understand you guys were all slumping. I understand you guys want to win. You want to be aggressive, but we still have to play fundamentally sound baseball. We still have to make sure we're crossing our T's, dotting our I's, accounting for the X's and O's before we start getting into hitting home runs and running in the shorter position. We have to just do the little things right." And they're not even doing that anymore, Sean. They're making more mental mistakes than I've seen this team make all season in the last month. I mean, countless errors, just bad situation of baseball over and over and over again. And you know what? If I'm Craig Counsell, next time there's runners in scoring position late in the game, 7th, 8th inning, and Kyle Tucker's up, I'm pinch hitting for him. And I'm sending a message. I'm be like, you know what? Every single time you come
out with send a message.
Every time you go out with runners in scoring position, you ground out to second base or you strike out every single time. The only way to fix this is to start holding you guys accountable and start punishing you guys. That's the only solution I can think of, because if you keep doing what you're doing, it's not working. Hey, Craig, it's not working. Whatever you're doing isn't working. Like, if you see Dustin here puts in the comments, I don't know if this is a solution or how he says, but I would lead off PCA. Do something. Lead off Kyle Tucker. Lead off PCA. Put Kyle Tucker in the eat hole. See if maybe that gets his sparks his bat.
Yeah.
Do something, Craig. Something. And Sean, what happened with Dansby Swanson when he moved him to the eat hole? What happened?
He took off, man.
He took off. It was the best stretch of his this year for Dansby Swanson. Why not try that with other guys? At this point, what do you have to lose? You're getting your ass kicked every game anyway. You might as well try something.
Yeah, it's kind of just become beyond pathetic. And to say, just like you said, it's become one humiliation after another, and it kind of starts at the top. If this team lacks resilience, urgency, belief, leadership, that's not just on the manager, that's on the front office, man. You can't keep selling next year. And I think these questions are fair to ask. What kind of tone is being set by the manager and his staff right now? Because they can't seem to get their head out of it. Who in this clubhouse? You want $600 million, Kyle Tucker. Who in this clubhouse is stepping up to lead among these players and rally them back in? And what accountability is coming from the top down, Jed Hoyer? Because I can tell you this. I listened to that Johnny Damon's podcast the other day, had Anthony Rizzo on it. And it was really awesome. And he asked him about the sense of urgency and the trade deadline and things like that. And he said in 2016, when the Cubs made those trades for Aroldis Chapman, he said, man, that fired up everybody. And then he goes back to 2018. He goes, when they failed to make any moves, he goes, that kind of deflated the roster. And as we say that, I'm just wondering, and I don't want to put it on that, but when you kind of look at what happened with these deadline moves, I thought I had a graphic in here somewhere. Oh, nope, that's the Cubs offense. Well, we can look at that because that's pretty pathetic too. I guess I did not get that in here. But if you start looking at what these guys did, I'm going to pull that in here really quick. I mean, you just, who's helping these guys? And I put this picture in here to say, you want to look at a defeated player? There's Kyle Tucker in Toronto, my friend. That's him sitting on the bench in Toronto. Head down, hands folded, if that's your leader who makes $600 million, that's not a guy I want to make $600 million. I'm going to be perfectly honest.
No, it's not. I mean, and I understand people keep saying the Cubs should have made moves at the trade deadline. The Cubs they should have been more aggressive. They should have keep showing this team that they have faith in them and they're going to take a run of World Series. But at the end, I'm not saying I necessarily disagree with that. But at the end of the day, guys, the players have to be held accountable as well. You can't just be like, well, the players should get a pass because the upper management didn't do enough at the trade deadline to prove to these guys that they believe in them. The fans are still going and paying $400 a ticket, $20 a beer to go watch their team on the field be the best that they could be. And this team simply isn't doing it. If you're telling me the reason this team is in such a slump is because they just lost faith in the front office and they're just like, oh, let's just go out there and make our money and go home. That's disrespectful to the fan base. If that's what the players' mentality is, it's like, well, we didn't do enough of the trade then. Like, we're certainly not going to make the World Series now. Let's just give up. That's not fair to the fan base. I mean, these people are still showing up every day, rooting you on, cheering for you, spending money to go see you live, spending money to go see the fan favorites and their idols in sports. You need to perform on the field. And Sean, I honestly, for the first time in my life, when it comes to sports, there's no answer for this problem. I mean, there's nothing you can do at this point. This team is done for 100%. You need any Cubs fans out there, this is over. The run 2025 is over. Stick a fork in them because they are certainly not winning World Series. And I'd be hard pressed for somebody to prove to me they're going to make the playoffs. I really don't even know if that's a guarantee anymore. The only thing the Cubs have going for them right now is teams like the Mets are sucking just as bad as the Chicago Cubs. But I don't know, man. First of all,
Kyle, I'll tell you this for Cub fans right now, for Cub fans that don't remember this, a team that wasn't mentally broken like this team, if you just have to go back to 2004, the Cubs had the lead and they had the staff. They finished the season 13-16, a 448 clip. They had the division lead. That was the year after the disappointment, against the Marlins, blowing Game 7. They lost their last 6 games in a row, wound up missing the playoffs. Now, they want to put in there, they don't want you to forget they lost Baez the beginning of September, Bryant and Rizzo. But those 6 games were at home, and you needed to win those. And they lost 5 of them by 1 run and then got swept by the Cardinals in a 4-game series at Wrigley for the first time in 98 years. And then you can go back to the Cubs doing this again in 2019. I mean, that one was 2019. So it's just, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. When you go back to 2004, they had that 2-game lead in the division in August and wound up missing the division altogether, or missing the playoffs altogether. So if you guys think the playoffs are safe, the Padres are red hot. I forgot to get their record before I came on here, but they're almost as hot as the Brewers. I mean, they're like, you're going to wind up playing one of these teams. And I'll tell you, we had the graphic last week where we showed the home and road splits for the Cubs pitchers. The Cubs pitchers on the road are not as good as they have been at Wrigley. So if you're starting on the road, you're already going at a disadvantage with what is your strongest asset on this club. Because everyone said we needed started pitching. Well, since July 1st, there's the Cubs starting pitching. It's 287 earned run average. It's the best in baseball. The Red Sox are next with a 332 earned run average. It's not on the starters. We needed bullpen help. And Kyle, you know this. I screamed on this damn podcast at the top of the mountain. You want to win this? You don't need a starter. Build that bullpen, because you are winning games that you're losing right now because your bullpen sucks. And Daniel Palencia is kind of cooked right now. Look at his last 4 outings. This guy's getting hit hard. He's running out of gas at the end of the season. That's why it was pivotal to pick somebody up that can pick him up, for the love of Christ. Jed Hoyer failed at the fucking deadline. Dude,
it's tough because, even with Daniel Palencia really hasn't pitched that much since the All-Star break. I mean, he pitches like it. I think it's every 4 games right now. He's averaging his pitching since the All-Star break. I mean, You can't score if you can't win if you can't score runs, guys. It's that simple. And Sean, I think we just need to start having a totally different conversation about the Cubs completely. I think at one point we were talking about a slump. We need to stop calling it a slump, guys. This is a big enough sample size at this point in the season where we could start having a conversation, Sean, and we could easily say this is a big enough sample size to the point where we keep saying this is a really good team that's playing poorly since the All-Star break, or is this an average team that was on a heater to begin the season? Like we're now getting into that conversation.
Yeah.
This has now been a long enough stretch where we don't know who this team is. Is this the team that started off the season and they're in a bad slump, or did they start the season off on a heater and this is really who the Cubs are? I think they've done this long enough now to the point where we can honestly make that argument that this is just an average team who played really, really well to start the season, because this is not a slump, guys. This is a third of the MLB season that the Cubs have been absolutely terrible for, a third of it. And it's not just the bats. It's not just the bullpen. It's just, like I said, it's the defense. It's mental errors. It's mental mistakes. It's all of it collectively. I just don't know if there's any solution to this problem. And even if there is, it's probably too late at this point, right, Sean? I mean, the Brewers now have a 9-game lead on the Chicago Cubs, and they have a 5-game lead on everybody else in baseball. You're certainly not going to catch them no matter what happens in that 5-game series. It's not going to happen. It's too late. This team fell apart. They needed somebody to come into that locker room and save them. And it's clear to me that that person's not on this roster.
Well, Kyle, can I ask? I want to ask you this, and the chat too. When you look at the pattern of 18 falling apart, 19 falling apart, and 23 falling apart, all teams that were kind of promising, but you see these teams unravel during the season. This year, it took a little bit longer. Does this suggest that there's more than just a systematic flaw, that it's roster construction, leadership in the clubhouse, organizational philosophy, that something in here is clearly broken, because the motto, we'll get him next year, is starting to get a little old?
I think it's a collective, Sean. I agree with everything everybody's saying in the chat here. Like, look, TJ says Craig is the most stubborn manager in recent memory. Yeah, I mean, like, he's not doing anything, guys. Like, you can't just give Craig Counsell by all accounts is a good manager in baseball, but he was paid to be a great manager. He certainly isn't great. I can tell you that for a fact. He shouldn't be the third highest paid manager in baseball. He also follows that up with Hawkins may end up being this year's scapegoat for his idiotic comments. Somebody's getting fired, guys. I mean, if somebody doesn't get fired, then it's right back to Sean's point about insanity. I mean, you guys are doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. At some point, something in this locker room needs to be changed. And at this point, Sean, as a Cubs fan, I'd be willing to do anything. Like, you want to move on from Ian Happ? Great. You want to let Kyle Tucker go? Great. You want to pay Kyle Tucker? Great. Do something. You have to do something. Like, something has to be done. But at the end of the day, what I think this is, Sean, is I think that the Cubs have a lot of streaky hitters, and they feed off of each other. Baseball is a game of momentum. And when one of them gets into a really bad slump, the rest of them follow suit. And the problem with the Cubs hitters is their slumps are really long. And I've talked about this before about Suzuki when they were playing well. I said, buyer beware. When these guys get into their slumps, it's not ups and downs, Sean. It's like jumping off Mount Everest and falling into the Grand Canyon. That's how big these ups and downs are. And I've never seen this with any baseball team prior. These aren't slumps. These are inconsistent players. That's what this is.
So let's put it this way, because I'm going to show you a couple of graphics here. On July 8th, Suzuki led all of baseball at 77 RBIs. Since then, or at that point, the Cubs had a 2.5-game lead on the Brewers. Since then, he has 8 RBIs. The Cubs are 14-15. The Brewers are 24-4. But don't you think that guys around him need to get on in order? I mean, when you start looking at this is August alone, 27 strikeouts. And I forgot to add up runners left on base. I'm so pissed at myself that I forgot about that gosh darn stat. But hitting 138, and when you want to go to an individual basis, I mean, Kyle Tucker, 43 at bats, 6 hits, 1 RBI, 2 runs, 4 walks, 12 strikeouts. But everyone, I keep saying, that's why I put it's going to be fine, because everyone keeps saying, oh, it's going to be fine. They're going to get out of it. Here's August, 44 at bats, 6 hits, 1 RBI, 1 run, 0 walks, 15 strikeouts. I mean, and again, Kyle, we talked about PCA. and him being young, and you start looking, you want to talk about another guy going through it. We have here's Cam Smith since the All-Star break, and I just put this together because everyone said it was he was the next Babe Ruth and blah blah blah. You know what? For as good as he is, how good has he been since the All-Star break? Not very good either.
Yeah, but Sean, you just said it.
James Wood is in the same boat as well.
Yes, I think James Wood, Cam Smith, and PCA all should get a pass. And I'm not saying like they shouldn't be held accountable or they shouldn't be held at fault for any of this, but these guys are all really young and they're still learning how to play in the major leagues. I mean, technically, Sean, this is PCA's rookie year. This is Cam Smith's rookie year. These guys should be given a longer leash because they're not used to this. They don't know what to do in a slump. They've never been in one in the major league. This is PCA's first big slump in the major leagues. Like, he doesn't know how to pull himself out of it. Kyle Tucker is a seasoned veteran who's been on teams that have had bad slumps and been on teams of one World Series. This is a guy who should not only be able to pull himself out of the slump, but he should be the guy who's kind of like lighting the fire under this team's ass and getting them all back on the same page. He's supposed to be the leader in the clubhouse. He's asking for upwards of, we've heard rumored $600 million. Certainly, what's the floor? 350 probably is what he's the lowest he'll take. I mean, if you want that kind of money, Kyle Tucker, you got to be a leader. You can't just be a guy who goes to the ballpark, does his job, and goes home. You need to be a vocal leader in that locker room. And to me, Kyle Tucker does not seem like that guy. Listen, sometimes when I'm on this podcast, I think the way that I talk, when I think the way the things I talk about, I think people think I'm not a fan of Kyle Tucker. I like Kyle Tucker, guys. I do. I like him a lot. But I'm not a Houston Astros fan. I don't give a shit what Kyle Tucker did for the Houston Astros. I don't care. I'm not an Astros fan. I didn't watch the Astros baseball when he was on them. I'm watching Kyle Tucker as a Chicago Cubs fan on the Chicago Cubs in a season in which that's preceding him asking for upwards of $600 million. I can tell you guys as a Cubs fan watching this team, he's not worth $600 million. I don't even, he's a very good player in baseball and he certainly helps your team. If Kyle Tucker's on your team, you have a better chance of winning the World Series than without him, but he's not worth $600 million. And if you're the Cubs organization, are you willing to tie that much money up into a guy who to me doesn't seem special? He's good. He's consistent. I mean, until the last month.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that when he was in Houston and he was the fourth wheel behind Altuve, Bregman, Alvarez, now that he's in the spotlight, is he buckling under the pressure of his big payday?
I mean, Sean,
that's supposed to come at the end of the year here. I mean,
all we could do is judge Kyle Tucker for what he's done on the Chicago Cubs. And if this is the first time he was put into this, hey, you're the guy, this is your new leadership role.
Yeah.
You have to be the captain of this team. And this is the result. Then I think all I can do is base that information based off of what I've seen on the field. Then he's not that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, how can I assume he's that guy? How can I be like, well, he's just having a bad year. If they sign him to $600 million next year, he'll be that captain and he'll pull these guys out of the slump. I can't project that because I don't know. So all I can do is assume that he is not that guy. He's not the leader type guy. He's like you just said, Sean, Kyle Tucker would be a great second best, third best, fourth best player on your team. He'd be great. If Kyle Tucker's your fourth best hitter on your team, you're in really good shape. But I do personally, guys, do not believe that Kyle Tucker is the type of leader that the Cubs need. If anything, I would take that $600 million and go get 4 really good players rather than pay Kyle Tucker, because obviously Kyle Tucker being on this roster is not the answer. It's not the savior. He's here, guys.
Yeah.
He's here right now. And the Cubs have lost.
Here's our savior.
Become a completely different team. That's the conversation worth having, Sean. Can Matt Shaw and PCA be big enough stars? And like I said, guys, I'm not. A lot of people are jumping ship on PCA. I'm seeing stuff on Twitter and Facebook. We told you this guy was going to suck. He was just hot to start the season. You guys, he's 23 years old. He's 23 years old, and his first full season in Major League Baseball. PCA is special. Just his speed alone makes him a special player, and he's always going to be special in some way, shape, or form. Maybe he's not the hitter he was in the beginning of the season. Maybe he does come down to that 250, 260. But even at that 250, 260 average, because of his base running and because of his defense, PCA is still going to be a really good player in baseball for a very long time. If Kyle Tucker gets into that 240, 250 range for a month span, he's not special in any way, shape, or form. He's not an amazing base runner. He's not an amazing outfielder. He's not a good leader. I mean, if you're gonna, for my personal opinion, Sean, if you're gonna spend $600 million this offseason, then go get two of the top starting pitchers in baseball. Go get Pete Alonso and go add two bullpen pieces. You could get 5 players for the same amount of money that Kyle Tucker's cap is potentially asking for. And let me make this clear real quick to everybody. Nobody knows what Kyle Tucker's asking for. We heard from his agent that $600 million would be like would be what they were looking for, but they obviously would probably settle for less. So we don't know what the threshold or the goal that Kyle Tucker's trying to meet this offseason. Nobody knows. Is it 350? Is it 450? Is it 5? Is it 6? I'll tell you this though. If it's anything above 350, I'm out. I want absolutely nothing to do with Kyle Tucker next year, especially at 30 years old. I'm out, Sean.
Well, yeah, he is still a 5 WAR. I'm not down on. I just put the graphic up, John, because it is part of the reason why the Cubs are struggling. I'm not mad at PCA. And Kyle will tell you this, I've been a Kyle Tucker defender.
100%.
His body language right now at the plate and just the way he's responding to this slump has made me question my thoughts about thinking about the player I thought he was, if that makes sense to anybody. I thought he was a bona fide leader, and he was brought here to the Chicago Cubs.
You thought he was special.
Yeah. He was brought here to avoid what's actually happening right now.
He was supposed to be the cornerstone. He was supposed to be the guy. If they got into this type of slump, he's supposed to pull them out. His bat's going to be so hot, everybody's going to follow suit. They're all going to jump on the Kyle Tucker bandwagon. Everybody's going to start hitting again. He's not that guy. He's clearly not that guy. Real quick, I want to say what's up to Mike Ross, Swaggy McNolegs, John S. Dustin's in the chat here. Breaking news, Bruce, as always. TJ, we appreciate all you guys joining us here. Thank you so much. If you guys want to talk about anything Cubs, please put it in the chat here. We'll address it if we can. Sean, something I want to talk about is the Cubs were hitting just fine, right, to start the season with Matt Shaw in a massive slump, right? And I shouldn't even say slump. Matt Shaw adjusting to the major league level, right?
Yep.
If Matt Shaw continues on the trajectory he's at right now, if he continues to do what he's doing, what he's done for the second half of the season, since the All-Star break at least, why can't you just assume that Matt Shaw can replace Kyle Tucker's production in the lineup next year?
Well,
if they were winning games to start the season and Matt Shaw wasn't hitting at all and Kyle Tucker was being Kyle Tucker, and now Matt Shaw's the only guy in this team hitting, and the Cubs, Kyle Tucker's in the slump, and the Cubs are terrible. Could you assume that if the Cubs started off the same way they did last year, but instead of Kyle Tucker having 18 home runs and 45 RBIs, Matt Shaw starts the season off with those same numbers? Should they not have the same success next year? Can't you just assume that Matt Shaw can replace that offensive power in the lineup? Because I expect Matt Shaw to be, if not a star, a really, really, really good player. And that's what we were told by all of baseball, by every expert who talks about, they're saying he was going to, all these writers were saying he was going to be the NL Rookie of the Year. People saying he was one of the top 10 prospects in baseball. The Cubs telling us he's going to be a star one day. If that's the case, and PCA and Matt Shaw both end up being stars, do you need Kyle Tucker, or could you go get a guy like Pete Alonso?
I would be okay with. My thing is, and I've expressed this through the last couple of weeks here. When you look at this team, and Kyle Tucker, really quick, being a 30 home run guy, I don't know if that's Matt Shaw. So yes, I would say we need to find someone that will replace that power in the lineup. Although when you look at the Brewers, they don't hit for slug, and they seem to be driving in runs just fine. That's a story for another day. We'll talk
they're
about.
They're obviously a much better run organization, Sean. I mean, and I know Cubs fans don't want to hear that, and it pisses them off, and they're like, "Oh, you're not a." Listen, you guys, the jury is out. It's not even a question. The Milwaukee Brewers are a better run organization than the Chicago Cubs. It's not even a question. Not even a question. I mean, I feel like the Milwaukee Brewers could trade Freddie Peralta, Jacob Mizorowski, and Brendan Woodruff in the offseason, and they'll still win 100 games next year. Like, I don't know what juju that team's got up there. I don't know what's going on over there, but no matter what happens with the Brewers, they always find a way to be competitive, and they always find a way to win. The Cubs are not that team. They're not that team. They're not that organization. I don't know if it's a culture thing. I don't know if, like you said, Sean, maybe all the players on this team are watching the contract negotiations. The fact that Kyle Tucker had to go to arbitration right after the Cubs traded for him. Maybe the rest of these players are seeing this stuff and are like, you know what? If this is the faith they have in us, if this is what they're willing to pay, this is what they're willing to do for us as players on the Chicago Cubs, then I don't want to be here. I don't want to play for this team. Maybe that's what it is, Sean. Maybe the fact that this team, the money they've ever spent on one player is $187 million in Jason Hayward. If the rest of the players on this team are looking at that contract and they're like, that's the threshold, that's my ceiling in Chicago, then I don't want to be here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with you, as much as it sucks to listen to millionaire baseball players bitch about money, I kind of understand it. Like, Sean, the Cubs offered Pete Crow Armstrong $75 million. How is nobody in that meeting room like, hey, Jed, it's got to be triple digits. You can't go under 100 million, or you're gonna. That's insulting. And then, like, Sean, we talked about this when it happened. I think them going to arbitration with Kyle Tucker set the tone. I think that set the tone. I think Kyle Tucker got here and was like, "Are you guys? You just traded for me, and you're already bitching about the $16 million you got to pay me for this year? Are you kidding me?"
Really quick, Kyle, because I have the Cubs post game on, or Cubs pregame on here next to me, and just so we're all clear, and I want everyone in the chat to realize this: this would still be an epic collapse, even though we already lost the division. Right now, the Chicago Cubs have a 96.2% chance to reach the postseason per Fangraphs. Now, wildcard teams to reach the World Series since 2022, the Phillies, the Rangers, and the Diamondbacks. I don't know if the Cubs can pull their head out of their ass long enough to even make a run in the playoffs. But again, I guess all hope isn't lost, because after this Brewers series, and we'll talk about this in a minute, the Cubs don't play another team over 500. I guess I might stand corrected. If they have the Cardinals, I think the Cardinals just went over 500. So I guess things can change with that if teams are really close to 500. But I think as it stands right now, I don't think the Cubs play anyone after this Brewer series over 500. The strength of schedule is, I believe, 482 for the Cubs starting today on the rest of the
So they played one of the worst teams in baseball.
No, I'm with you. I mean, they struggled against the Orioles. You needed a walk-off from Justin Turner. You let the Royals come in here and beat your brains in Wrigley Field. I mean,
you couldn't get guys home from second. You couldn't get guys home from second and third with 0 out against the Blue Jays, and your big boys came up. Like, if you could have scripted that last game, the Blue Jays series, if you could have scripted it as a Cubs fan, you'd be like, hey, how do you want this to play out? I'd be like, I want guys on second and third, 0 out, and Kyle Tucker up to back. Ian Happ and Kyle Tucker back to back are two most longest tenured players in Major League Baseball who have had success at the Major League level, and these are guys the Cubs lean on heavily in order that they believe is going to carry them to a World Series. Guys like Kyle Tucker. Obviously, the Cubs love Ian Happ. He's like one of the longest tenured Cubs of all time. That's the scenario you want, right? I want Kyle Tucker up with men on second and third and 1 out.
Usually,
and it's not happening. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's up, Sean. Pull a name out of a hat. The only guy I have faith to score, to bring a run home with in that scenario late in the game in a clutch situation is Matt Shaw or Nico Horner. Outside of those two, I don't want anybody on this team up to bat with. I'd be like, is there a fan in the crowd that could hit a baseball? Because I certainly do. I've seen Kyle Tucker with runners in scoring position late in the game. I'm done with it. I told you that, Sean. I texted you that. I'm like, I'm done with it. If I'm Craig Counsell, I'm bringing Mo Baller in. I'm bringing Owen Caissie in. I'm pitch hitting for Kyle Tucker every time until he can prove to me other. At least maybe send a message to him like, hey, man, every single time you have an opportunity to take a chance to take advantage of a clutch situation, you drop the ball every single time. You drop the ball. So you know what? From here on out, when there's runners in scoring position, 1 out late in the game, we're going to pinch hit for you, and you're going to go sit your ass on the bench. That's what I would do, because we talked about all offseason with the Chicago Bears. So they need an offensive coach, they need a leader of men. But I think every coach in the NFL, every coach in baseball, every coach in every sport needs to have a little bit of that leader of men mentality inside of him. He needs to hold people accountable. He needs to be an asshole sometimes. Yeah. I don't see that in Craig Counsell. I just don't see it in him. I think that guy is the type of guy who just keeps doing the same thing over and over. And Sean, like you said, he's hoping, he's sitting there with his eyes closed and fingers crossed that one day he puts this lineup out there and they hit 9 home runs. Guys, it's not happening. Craig, it's not happening. It's not happening.
I mean, here, if you guys want to know the truth, since the All-Star break, I think it was, or no, what was it? The last 45 days or something, I think it was. I have to look up the stat to be correct, but it's 7 home runs for Matt Shaw and it's 6 for PCA and Tucker combined. I think it was like over the past 50 games. I think it was. I'd have to look it up to be.
Okay, Sean,
correct.
it's not you. I don't care. I don't care if you love Kyle Tucker. I don't care if you love PCA. You guys, there is no way to argue that since the All-Star break, Matt Shaw is the best Chicago Cub. And what I'm saying, this is what I was talking about earlier.
Without a doubt.
If this carries into next season, do you really need Kyle Tucker? Because it seems like Matt Shaw is more than willing to replace that offensive production in the lineup from Kyle Tucker. I mean, this guy looks like he's going to be a star. And, all we heard about from Matt Shaw, Sean, all we heard coming into the season is, yeah, he's a good hitter. He's going to be a good hitter, but he's not good at third base. I beg to differ.
I beg to differ,
I
too.
absolutely beg to differ.
He looks like a future Gold Glover.
He looks like he's going to be one of the best third basemen in the NL for a very long time. That's what he looks like to me. And maybe I'm just biased and I'm looking at it through a Cubs lens, but a Cubs fan's lens. But Matt Shaw looks like he checks off every single box on the sheet that you're looking for. I just don't think you need Kyle Tucker. I think you'd get the same offense production next year if you had Owen Caissie and Matt Shaw up here, or you added Pete Alonso at first base. So why pay a guy $600 million if this is going to be the end result anyway? Why would you do that? You're just handicapping yourself for absolutely no reason whatsoever at all. It doesn't make any sense. It just wouldn't make sense for the Cubs to sign Kyle Tucker. That wouldn't make any sense to me.
And I want to get to a couple of these comments really quick because Mike Ross put in here, Shaw had the most awkward batting stance to start the season. And I really would like to get inside. I know Shaw was working a little bit with Justin Turner, but there's a lot of Cubs fans on X and on Facebook that are calling for Dustin Kelly's head. I want to know if Dustin Kelly was able to dial in that batting stance. I mean, ever since they've worked on that stance, he's pulling the ball, he's driving the ball more, obviously hitting it out of the park. So I wonder if Dustin Kelly had something to do. I don't want to put this on Dustin Kelly because I think the Cubs have hit well. I don't personally want to say, oh, this is all the hitting coach's fault. I don't know where you are with
first
that,
of all, that's ridiculous. I mean, I will say, Sean, it wouldn't surprise me if he does end up becoming a scapegoat for this team because they're going to fire somebody. Somebody has to get fired. But Kelly has now tweaked PCA's stance. He's tweaked Miguel Amaya's stance. He's tweaked Matt Shaw's stance, and all of them have had success in baseball since he did that. Dude. So obviously this guy knows what he's doing. I think the person that needs to be fired, it needs to be a bigger statement. It needs to be a Carter Hawkins. It needs to be somebody like that, Sean. Or, God, I forbid I say it because I know Cubs fans are going to be happy about this, but maybe even Craig Counsell, because I'm just telling you, I honestly believe in my heart of hearts, guys, that if David Ross was still the manager of this team that now has Kyle Tucker, I think they would have about the same record that they do right now. I honestly believe that 100%. I'm not saying that because I'm a Craig Counsell hater. I think Craig Counsell is a good manager, but I just don't think he's worth the money. I think they thought they were going to hire Craig Counsell, sign Craig Counsell, and he was going to make a team
bring that Brewer magic with him.
Yeah, he would take a team that looked a little bit above average to make them look well above average, and he's just not that guy. He's not. I think the Brewers organization is a very well-run organization, and basically anybody who steps into that clubhouse over there and manages is going to have success, and anybody who comes to the Cubs is going to have the same issues. There's going to be these long stints of slumps, and they don't know how to pull out of it. I think it's a culture thing, Sean. The problem is it's not as easy to define in baseball as it is other sports. It's tough to find where you place the blame in Major League Baseball. It is. It's just a tough sport. It's an awkward sport. I've talked about this all year. It's a very awkward sport.
And honestly, I want to touch on some of these guys because I see a lot of people, 98% chance to still make the playoffs on that site, 90% on this site. Guys, you remember, again, there was 8 games left in 2004. The Cubs had a 2-game lead. They lost 6 of their last 8 games and wound up 2 games behind the Astros. Go back to 2019. They were leading the division on August 22nd. They finished 13-16, including losing 6 in a row and missed the playoffs. I've been pushing this button, and saying this isn't a lock. I mean, the Padres are hot. I just don't know. And I do have to agree. Someone else said in here that some of the other teams behind the Cubs are faltering. The Mets have definitely fallen off. I'm not worried about the Cardinals. And we'll see what happens these next 2 games with the Reds and the Brewers. But don't sell the Reds short if the Cubs don't get their head out of their ass that the Reds actually pass the Cubs and the Cubs wind up 3rd in this division. I know people throw eggs at me right now. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility The Reds just came in here and
Well, I
beat
mean,
our
Sean,
ass too.
if the Cubs keep playing the way they're playing, that's not really saying that much. Here's a question, Sean. I love this question from Swaggy McNolex. I love this, and I want you to answer this question.
Mhm.
He says, "Would the Brewers be better or worse with Craig Counsell?" I want you to answer that question sincerely and honestly. Would that team be better or worse with
they'd
Craig Counsell?
probably be the same. The only thing that left was Craig Counsell. Pat Murphy was his bench coach. So everything stayed the same. They just pushed him out the door and said, "Hey, we have great prospects. We're going to win this way." The philosophy, the organizational stance, everything that they do was still in place. They didn't go and hire someone from the outside. They said, "Hey, bench coach, you're the coach now. You know everything that's going on here." So maybe Pat Murphy's a little bit better at managing his pitchers than Craig Counsell, because Craig Counsell has made me a little weary this year, especially about how he's managed his pitchers. And I'm not speaking of Cade Horton, because I understand what's happening with Cade Horton, and they're trying to preserve him for the playoffs. So, but outside of that, you've taken some pitchers out that had low pitch counts, and you brought in a bullpen that's then went on and blown the game instead of leaving your starter out there. And maybe he doesn't have faith late in the games with his starters, but I mean, I guess if you don't, then you don't really have any good starters. But the Cubs starters haven't been the problem for me. I think Craig Counsell, this team might still be the same. It still might be.
I love it, Mike. I love it. Yeah, I don't know. There's something going on in Milwaukee. I think they sold their soul to the devil or something, and it doesn't matter who's managing there. It could be a child in the moment. I will say this though, Sean. When the Cubs played the Brewers last, at one point they brought out one of the relief pitchers, and he started to look shaky. I think he gave up a couple of walks or a couple of hits, and the Brewers manager
pulled him
and went out there, and he was shaking his head and was not happy. And he took that ball and he basically told him, "Get the hell off the field." He showed that he was disappointed. He showed him he was going to be held accountable. If you can't do it, we'll pull your ass out of here and put somebody else in. That I think that means something to the players. I think it does. You never see that fire from Craig Counsell. You never see that emotion from Craig Counsell. He's very even keeled, very level headed. He just kind of stands there with the same look on his face. He never looks upset. He never looks happy. He just looks like the same guy every game. At some point, Craig, you have to do something different. You have to do something different. You can't just be the same guy day in and day out. Craig Counsell should be having Sean, has this team even had like a team meeting yet? I haven't heard anything about that on Twitter.
They did say that they had a team meeting, and it was orchestrated by Kyle Tucker. And that it's probably a week ago or so, maybe a little bit longer than that. But I did hear that Kyle Tucker pulled a team meeting.
But Sean, don't you think that was like what? Well, how has Craig Counsell not done that? How has Craig Counsell not done that?
Maybe Craig.
You're the manager of this baseball team, man.
Craig Counsell has, and it wasn't spoken
about.
I mean,
I guess it's all speculation. We don't know exactly what's going on in those locker rooms. But if Craig Counsell hasn't done that, if he hasn't pulled this team together and been like, "You guys, everybody sit your ass down. We need to talk about this. We need to figure out what the hell is going on here, because you guys are all better than this. So something is wrong. Talk to me, you guys. Let me know what are you guys? What's the situation? Are you guys unhappy? Are you worried about the future? Are you thinking into next year? Like what? Why are you guys playing so poorly over the last 2 months?" And try to come to a solution or a resolution. I just don't think. I think Craig Counsell is just okay being the manager of the Cubs, and it sucks to say that because it's heartbreaking. But I think that's where he's at.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Do you think that Craig came here, left Milwaukee because Milwaukee didn't have the money to spend on big free agents?
Well, he came to the wrong place.
Well, he thought he was coming here, and they're like, he's like, "Ooh, I'm going to Chicago. They're going to get me."
Well, Sean, if that's the case, then he's an idiot, because Theo Epstein basically came out and said that's why he left. I mean, he made that quite clear. I mean, he didn't say it like black and white, but when you listen to Theo Epstein's exit interviews, whatever you want to call them, when he left the Chicago Cubs and decided to move on to bigger and better things, as he said it, I mean, he all but said this franchise has 150 years old. This is who the Cubs are. They've been stuck in this way for a very long time. This is always how they're going to operate as one of those mid-tier teams, even though they're one of the most valuable teams in baseball. They're always going to operate like they're one of those 10th, 11th, 12th teams in financials. And
It sucks.
I think Theo Epstein knew, if I want to create a legacy for myself, if I want to win multiple championships and have sustained success and always be in the running for winning the World Series, this is not the place to do it. So why Craig Counsell thought he would come here and all of a sudden the Cubs would just open the bank vault and let him like spend money on whoever he wants, that was never going to happen. And Sean, everybody knew that. So how could Craig Counsell not know that? You knew that. I knew that. We knew that
Yeah.
the Cubs weren't going to spend $700 million in an offseason. They weren't going to go. We knew they weren't going to be in the Ohtani sweepstakes. We know they were going to be in the Juan Soto sweepstakes. Even to get Kyle Tucker here, they had to trade one of their best prospects, if not their best prospects, and he might just end up being a rental. We all knew this is who the Cubs were. How does Craig Counsell not know that? Like, Craig, you played against this Cubs team. They couldn't pull themselves out of rut for 5 years against you when you were in Milwaukee. Why would you think you're going to come here and all of a sudden they're going to start spending hundreds of millions of dollars and copious amounts of money on every big free agent in the offseason? You knew that's not the Cubs. It's never going to be the Cubs. And I think people got fooled. I think people thought once Tom Ricketts bought this team from the Tribune that all of a sudden it was going to be a totally different situation. You guys go back and look at that 2016 World Series team. They didn't spend a ton of money to win it. It was one of those situations where everything had to go right. All the prospects had to pan out. They needed guys like Jake Arrieta to resurrect his career in Chicago. This was not like, oh, the Cubs went and got Chris Sale, Max Scherzer, Jacob deGrom, John Lester, and they signed three of the best hitters in the free agency and they won a World Series. No, go look at that team, guys. It was Chris Bryant. The biggest free agent they added that offseason outside of pitching, if you talk about in the lineup, was Ben Zobrist. You guys, Ben Zobrist was a great player. I love him, but he's not one of the best hitters in all of baseball. He was just the missing piece.
He was the straw that stirred.
Yeah, he was the missing piece. That's what he was. They were like, you know what? We need one more guy who can hit for power sometimes and always hits for average and does all the little things right and is a good leader and a good teammate. We need that one guy to drop in the middle of the lineup, and that was Ben Zobrist, and it couldn't work any better for them. The Cubs were this close, Sean, this close to not winning that 2016 World Series. Everything had to go right.
Yeah, well,
and if that's your mentality, if that's how you're going to win World Series for the rest of your existence in Major League Baseball, you're not going to win many World Series. It's not going to happen because all the ducks don't line up and fall in a row every single year. That happens once every 25 years. Or if you're the Chicago Cubs, guys, it happens once every 116 years.
I will say that was the move, I think, the Ben Zobrist leadership, because if you look at Ben Zobrist, what did he do? Win back-to-back World Series. He moved from one team to another. He was the MVPs. Yeah, and as much as people hated Jason Hayward, excuse me, dude, Jason Hayward was the guy who pulled the Cubs together in the playoffs. He brought something to the organization. So that's in here for me right now with all of these players that are on this team, and I think the Cubs do have good players on this team. I do think there is a leadership issue on this club, something that wasn't here in 2016. Now, that leadership didn't last long because 2017 was a disaster. 2018 was a collapse. 2019.
Sure, real quick. Sorry. Yes, Swaggy and Mike, you're right. 108 years. I apologize. 160.
Well, for what?
In between World Series. I apologize. You guys are 100% correct.
I think something needs to change within this organization, and what it is, I don't know. And that begs the question. Chat, you guys, everybody, answer this question. Do you think that, and I know it's been talked about in social media, but do you think because they moved the weird timing of this Jed Hoyer extension, do you think that's what broke this team this year? That he actually pulled back and wound up giving us this instead of getting us anything better? Because this shit that came out about Michael Soroka is an absolute joke. That this guy was already.
That's embarrassing. He had an MRI a week before the Cubs traded for him, and the Cubs really and they had to expose that information. The Cubs, that wasn't hidden. The Cubs knew that. They knew he had an MRI before they traded for him, and you're still going to trade for him? Like that's a loser's mentality. That's what that is. That's a loser's mentality. And Sean, as much as Craig Counsell, every single player on this roster, Hawkins, Hoyer, they all need to be held accountable. I do feel bad for Craig Counsell in a way. I do.
I do too.
He's lost. He doesn't know how to fix this. There is no quick switch you can flip and all of a sudden these guys are going to be hitting. He doesn't know what to do. I, at the same time, believe that Craig Counsell could have done more to get the Cubs out of this. And I say could have done, guys, because it's over. Anybody who thinks the Cubs are winning this division, you're not watching this Cubs team. You're not watching baseball. It's not going to happen. So I'm speaking in past tense. Anything he could have done to spark this team, to light a fire under their ass, he didn't do. He didn't do anything. He sat by and watched idly in the dugout and watched this team fall apart. But in his defense, you guys, he probably was looking for help outside of this organization somewhere. Maybe, I don't know, maybe somebody in the minor league system, maybe somebody from a different, a different trade piece, like somebody, Pete Alonso, maybe get him here for the last. But it seems to me like from the top down, Sean, like you said, this is an organizational failure. It falls on everybody's shoulders, but it starts with Tom Ricketts. And I just think that Tom Ricketts is okay with being mediocre. I think that's the type of guy. I don't think there are certain owners in sports who own baseball teams and football teams and basketball teams, and they look at it as a business and they're like, I'm here to make money. And there's other owners in sports, like you guys can tell, like the owner of the Dodgers, who want to win championships every year, and they want to be the best, and they want to set the standards, and they want everybody in baseball to be looking up at them. I don't think Tom Ricketts is anywhere close to that guy. I think Tom Ricketts is a guy who's like, hey, Jed, make sure we're playing meaningful baseball in August and people are still showing up to the stadium and still spending money and still buying tickets. I think that's the goal for the Chicago Cubs organization. I mean, Sean, I think can I ask you a question? And yeah. I want to know your opinion of this. And the chat, I'd like to know your opinion of this too. Are you guys starting to get the vibe? Like when the Cubs traded for Kyle Tucker, they had no idea what they were going to do with him in the future. None whatsoever at all. Like it was just a blind trade. They like threw a dart at the wall and it landed on Kyle Tucker. They're like, well, let's go get that guy. And somebody in the building was like, yeah,